So we all know that guy. It's usually the rules lawyer. Thinks he knows everything about Dungeons and Dragons. He's been playing 5th edition for years. What he doesn't know is that Dungeons and Dragons actually had a magazine in print from 1986 all the way up to 2007, and then it was continued to be printed digitally up until 2013. And so that's a lot of issues. In those issues, there's a lot of history and a lot of techniques passed down from the older generation of dungeon masters. We're talking about the old school gamers who were really into dungeon delving and less about RP. Those who really had to give some thought into their traps. They didn't have random generators online to look things up. There's so many assets available for free. But back then, back in the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s, there were no things like that. So people had to depend on word of mouth and the magazines, the Dungeon magazine, to come up with new concepts, new items, new tables, and things like that. And we're going to look at one of them today. I'm going to show you some of the great things that old school dungeon masters had to work with that are just missing from modern day D&D games. Check it out. Okay, you guys, I cannot wait to get in and show you some of the incredible old school things that players used to play with on a regular basis that I feel like modern Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop RPGs have kind of lost. So let's get right into it. So let's just start right here. Yes, I don't have a cover. Let's just start right here. Cataclysmic. There's nothing mousy about the amazing stories in a full-size magazine format with full color artwork that will make you pause, and stories and reviews and article that will make you leaving feline good about what you've read. Oh my gosh. So just one thing to start off with, if you look through some of these different things, they have adverts and things like that for all sorts of tabletop RPGs and all sorts of different products that would never fly these days, but you'll see that more as we come along. So let's turn the page here. We'll get to the table of contents. So right here we see that it is issue 179, which is March 1992. Now, one thing about Dragon Magazine is that the 90s were not as good to me, I feel, as the 80s. And I feel like the 80s just had a lot more content to them, a lot more useful, a lot more tangible things that you could take away and actually use. But let's look at this. This issue, just from looking this over, is all about magic items and really incredible, unique magic items that you wouldn't necessarily use in modern D&D. So magic is power. Picture this. So we're going to turn the page. I'll just get to it. So just like normal magazines, remember regular magazines? They have editorials, letters to the editors, and things like that. Do you risk it all every month? Look at this. Magic is power. Just, that's it. Magic is power. There's nothing else here. Artwork by Jeff Mings. That's it. So picture this. Many magical paintings. So these are like cursed paintings. And like all this text right here, these two columns are for one thing. The Watchers. And so it's like, not only do these things have like incredible powers, but they have their own full backstory and things like that. If you look real closely, they have stats for what they do and things like that. I'm going to have to go through and take a look at what these things do. For example, the Gladiator is a large painting, 6 feet by 8 feet long, and both heavy and cumbersome. As the name implies, the painting depicts 4 heavily armored gladiators facing each other in sandy arena. So what does it do? If a human or a humanoid, except Arlena herself, walks within 10 feet of the painting without first saying a special password, he and all his clothing and equipment are immediately transported into the painting. Things like this, these are their own quest hooks. They're valuable. They have their own gold worth and things like that. And, I mean, take your pick. This is incredible. How about candles? When was the last time you thought about giving a candle as a quest reward? Now, to be fair, I did try to give one of these to one of my players, and he wasn't really about it. His excuse, as he kindly declined, was that it was not portable enough. And if you look at this goat skull with a giant candle sitting on top of it, you can't really blame him. But There are candles of charming, candles of brilliance. There's candles of fireballs, of exploding. Candle of divination, candle of pyrotechnics, candle of protection, things like that. So when you light them, things like candles of darkness, to where you light them and it gives off darkness. Candle of fireballs, of defense, flame arrows, things like that. And now for something completely different. Variety should be the treasure hoard's spice. And I mean, what did I say in my previous video? Is that flavor items, flavor texts and encounters are what really makes these sort of games really awesome. So this here doesn't really give you a specific item, but it gives you idea for items. Bulky valuables. Not everything comes in the form of gold or rings or something portable. Sometimes they come in the form of giant candles or giant pictures. You know, what about like a really valuable musical instrument? Like you go and you scour the keep and you find a beautiful, luxurious piano. Well, that's worth money. How are you going to get it home? That's not going to fit in your bag of holding. Jewel-encrusted statues, things like that. Just cool stuff. Oh, here's one of those sweet ads for another game. The source book of techno-horror reality. What? Look at that hair. Man. This is cool. And Lightening Lanterns. Some of these things are insane. The effects that some of these things have, like, I can't really stress that enough. These seem like stupid, really mundane things. I think because of modern RPG players, we get kind of spoiled with the loot that we get. We want the flaming swords and the useful stuff and the stuff that seems the instant gratification kind of items. But look at these. Goldmane's Dazzler. The Dazzler is one of the most beautifully delicate crafted items ever built. It appears to be an intricately carved lion's head with large green gemstone eyes set on a gold cylinder. So what does this thing do? Carved on the back of the cylinder are two words written in common, dazzle and roar. When the jaws are open and the command dazzle is spoken, a beam of dazzling light issues forth from the lion's mouth. The beam has the same effects as the mage spell's confusion. When the command roar is spoken and the jaws are open, a number of things will occur. First, the lights will dim, the eyes will glow brightly. Second, there will be a great inrush of air. The air movement extinguishes all torches within a 20-foot radius. Immediately thereafter, but still during the same round in which the command word is spoken, the lion's head releases a mighty roar that deafens all creatures in a 20-foot radius and creates a cone of force 120 feet long, 30 feet wide at the end. You can... And there's more to it. Just think of the hijinks something like this would bring to a party. And there's like a bunch of them. Holy cow. These all do... Krillis' Blazer, Shadowcaster. Like, I'm not going to take the time to read all these, but these are incredible things. If you ever have an opportunity to get your hands on some old dungeon magazines or look into some old school articles, these are definitely worth looking into. And here's some cool things. In old dungeon magazines, they would always come out every once in a while with stories. And you could read these stories, and I don't know if these are like canonical or anything in the grand scheme of, you know, Wizards lore or anything like that. But, I mean, you're talking a good, you know, like 5 pages of solid, you know, campaign. Like, that's pretty cool. Serious fun, guaranteed. The Voyage of the Princess Ark, Part 26. Hello. A glass of wine and a shaggy dog story. Interesting. They've got some cool old school artwork in here. What I like in this is that you can actually like pull some of this out and just frame it. Some of this stuff is cool. Here they would have addresses for all your local game shops, and by local I mean everything in the nation, some in other nations, because game stores were just that few and far between, I guess. The Marvel file. I guess Marvel games were pretty cool back in the day. I've seen stuff for Battletech and Robotech and stuff like that. Call of Cthulhu. Look at this. The role of computers. They had strategy guides for games that were just off on the first computers and things like that. The greatest gaming events in the century is yours. Gen Con 1992. I wonder which one that is. 25? Maybe? Gen Con 25? How old is Gen Con? I don't know. Network events and things like that. Look at these totally rad kids and their sweet tabletop antics. Look at that. The Simpsons. Look at some of the artwork for some of these things. That's so cool. Look at that. Wonders of the Land of Fate. Magical items for the Al-Qadim AD&D campaign setting. And so these are setting-specific magical items. Arabian Adventures. Look at that. Wham bam. You got a sweet Aladdin-esque adventure. Need some magic rings. Boom. Fancy scimitars. We got it. Pilfers, oils, potions. Scrolls, things like that. This is cool. Like, that's not, that kind of setting, that's not my cup of tea, but the fact that they have a publication talking about it. You know what I mean? Look at this. Stat blocks for bad guys. Rude dudes. Moses. And look, man, these guys took their gaming seriously back then. Look, convention calendar. You can see nationwide where all these things were happening. Ohio, Montana, Arizona, Texas, South Carolina. Role-playing reviews. 1001 Faces of Fantasy. And you know, truthfully, these sort of magazines, they don't really hold a lot for the modern player, but boy, you can really glean a lot of good stuff out of these things. Lift your AD&D game characters into a Spelljammer campaign. I mean, look at this. I mean, that reminds me of Acquisitions Incorporated right there. Spoilers. Lord of the Rings adventure game. Come on. Look at that. Look, even back then, spell cards. Come on, guys. Isn't that cool? Ooh, Sage Advice by Skip Williams. Why can't druids in the AD&D 2nd edition game cast the 4th level spell Call Woodland Beings and the 5th level spell Commune with Nature as they could in AD&D 1st edition game? Look at this. What's this for? Like, and here's something that'll throw you off. Look at this. Look closely right here. See that? Tortle Tribeland. You thought turtles were a recent thing, didn't you? Like, look at this crap. Look at that. Where else are you going to see that sort of stuff? In like every good publication, you got comics in the back. And some of these are like pretty cool. Like genuinely like pretty good. These are like Sunday comics. And they like if you follow the issues, like this is a pretty like in-depth story that goes on for a very long time. Ooh, get your Robotech video cassettes. I think that's all the cool stuff that's pertinent for us in this issue. Through the Looking Glass. Do you have to play with official miniatures? Oh, look at that. Product ratings. Talks about how good third-party miniatures are. I mean, some of them look really bad, but like, those look pretty cool to me. Those Knolls, that's pretty cool. Oh, we want to look at that. Oh, like, look at that. When orcs want to mechanize, they get onto a Triceratops. That's pretty cool. Triceratops mounted cannon. Get out of town. Well, guys, that's the last of that portion that I have for you. Hopefully I didn't sound too dorky in that, but just going back to some of these things are incredible. These are unique things that your players might really pick up and run with that could really bring a lot of character to your campaign. These things will get you out of the status quo of treasure distribution and wealth management. And I think if you ever get an opportunity to pick up some old magazines like this, I really encourage you to do it because, as you'll see in a couple of my next videos, there are some great opportunities to throw some curveballs at your players, and things like this are the perfect way to do it. Let's go through a couple other things real quick. Like, I want to read some of these descriptions to you guys, but like they're so long. I can't. I would have to like. No, it's just gonna be too long. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. If you liked what you see, if you want to see some more amazing things, like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I am happy to go through more issues. I have 2 big stacks of these that I'm going to eventually go through, I think, and we'll see how that works out. So here's my question for you. Have you guys ever used material like this before? If you're an old school gamer, tell me what some of your favorite old school things that you use and utilize in your modern games are. I would love to know what you guys use, because as a modern dungeon master, I know that there are tips and tricks that we just don't think of. I mean, we can't reinvent the wheel, but we can certainly go back and look at the history of how it was made. And same thing here. Love listening to old timers tell us about their gaming habits from the 80s and the 90s and beyond. So let me know what you think. Tell me your stories of old school gaming, and we'll catch you next time.